What is up, everybody? This is Ryan with the Scale Up Show. This is an interesting one. Okay, so my guest today is Peter Caputa IV. And if you haven't heard of him, he was a former VP of sales at Hubspot that reported directly to the CEO and started there when they only had 100 customers. And this is a $1.4 billion a year revenue company right now. So he actually breaks down and shares the number one strategy that he learned and used now at Databox, where he's the CEO, while he was at HubSpot reporting directly to the CEO. You're not going to want to miss this. Check it out. Welcome, everybody, to the Scale Up Show. This is your host, Ryan Staley, and I have a very special guest with me today. I have Peter Caputa IV, who is the CEO of Databox, former VP of sales at HubSpot, where he started when they're only at 300,000 in revenue, helped grow it all the way to 200 million. And Peter is in the Northeast right now in one of the sweetest Four Seasons rooms I've ever seen. Peter, welcome. Happy to have you on the show, man.
Thanks, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here. Enjoyed listening to your podcast. So it's nice to be.
Yeah, man. I love it that you're a listener and you've made it to the one of the guests. So those are some of my best people that I have on. So before we get into your backstory, which is really cool, let's do a fast revenue rundown. So where are you guys at in terms of your revenue stage in terms of ARR?
We're just shy of 6.2 million ARR. So
nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a good spot to be. But yeah, I don't know what other background you want in terms of funding or anything like that, or how long it took us to get there.
Well, how long did it take you to get there? Since you're offering that up, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, so I joined 5 years ago. Revenue was very small then, like a few thousand MRR. And so it's taken us 5 years to go basically from zero to where we are now. Before that, the company actually had raised money. They had raised 3.8 million seed round. And they had customers when they raised that seed round, enterprise customers. But that didn't work out, that original plan. So they took the funding and it just didn't scale. And so they pivoted, and I joined like right kind of towards that right at the end of that pivot. They had just kind of pivoted and we're just about to go out to market to a new type of customer. And so that's when
awesome, man. So what's your primary revenue go-to-market strategy right now?
Do you mean like who do we sell to, or what do you mean by revenue
just in terms
strategy?
of like what's your focus? Is it heavily on the product-led growth side, marketing, sales, content? Like what's your primary means of acquiring customers?
Oh, okay, got you. Yeah, so we are a freemium product. We have a free version of the product. Our average sale price is I think around $190 a month. So we have just shy of 3,000 customers total. And so we rely heavily on the product to get people in the door, to get them starting to set up the product. We do have a sales team. We also have a BD team, a BDR team, and a bunch of other teams post-sale as well that are there to help the customers with setup. But it's largely a product-driven sale, as opposed to, we're not really qualifying business needs. Usually the business need is already established because they've signed up for our product. And that's kind of when they sign up for our product, it's an expression of needing it. And so we're more assisting. The trick with our product versus other freemium products, though, is that it is custom dashboard software. So every customer's setup process is unique, meaning they want to look at different business metrics on their dashboards than every other customer. And therefore, there's quite a bit of back and forth, I'd say, consulting by the teams to help get that set up, right? Because the customer doesn't know how to use our product to get the data they want, and we don't know how they run their business in order to help them set it up. So there's some back and forth, consultative selling to get that done. So it's a little bit of a hybrid. We do have a sales team, obviously, that does that. And then as far as generating demand, up until very recently, it was 100% SEO. We get about 5,000 signups for our free product every month, all from organic. More recently, we started doing outbound through social and started investing a lot more in brand marketing through social publishing and podcasting and things like that. But yeah, primarily I can trace it back to search traffic for both branded terms, of course, and based on our reputation at this point, as well as keyword terms, things like people searching for HubSpot, reporting tool, or SEO dashboard software, things like that.
Okay, excellent. So that's a great backdrop. How big is your team?
We have around 135 people at this point.
Okay, and what?
Heavily on the product and engineering side. What's that?
I was just gonna say, what's the mix with like product versus marketing and ops?
Yeah, so a little less than half the company is probably product and engineering. And then I'd say we just tweeted out a picture from from our marketing meeting, and it filled up all the boxes on Zoom. So I think that's like maybe 12 or something like that, maybe 16, no, 12 people in marketing, and then the rest is our customer success team, which includes our BDR team, sales team, customer onboarding team, account management team, customer support team, technical support team, sales engineers. So we have departments for each of those.
Okay, excellent. And then, can you just give a brief description of like what your solution is and who it serves exactly?
Sure. Yeah. So there's so much data that companies are producing now, primarily based on software that they're using to do their jobs, whether that's marketing tools or sales, customer support, finance, etc. Pretty much everything is done through software, captured in software these days. And so there's all these performance data out there, and most companies don't have a centralized view of that. So that's what we do. We enable them to very quickly connect to all the tools they use, say Google Analytics, an SEO tool, their social tools, their ad platforms, their marketing automation tools, their CRM, etc. And then once they connect them, which is simply by basically logging in through OAuth, they can then either take pre-built dashboards that we've built or select metrics and create custom dashboards. From there, they can share those dashboards internally or with other stakeholders and set up automated reports where they can describe their performance and receive scorecards, alerts, set goals up and track performance against goals, et cetera, et cetera. And so a big portion of our customers are marketing agencies and consultants who use the software to report results to clients. And that's about 40% of our customers. And then the rest of our customers are, companies that are just looking to improve their performance management and reporting processes, automate more of it, do it more, consistently with less effort.
Love that, man. What is up, everybody? Thanks for checking this out. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss it. Also hit the notification bell so you don't miss an episode at all. And if you want to find out more about how I could help you or your organization, check out my website, www.ryanstaley.io. Now we're back to the video. Excellent. Well, I think that's a pretty sweet solution. I checked it out, obviously, before the show, and I love what I saw. So I think you're doing some great work over there. I know you mentioned you were funded initially. So did you buy back that funding, or are you bootstrapped now, or is there still an element of
No, I came in originally met one of the investors actually. I was while I was at HubSpot still, I was advising a handful of different software companies, and one of Databox investors was an investor in another company. And so I met with him as I was, considering leaving HubSpot and starting my own thing. And he says, you got to meet the founder of Databox. He's awesome. And there's a good match between your skills and experience and what they need and your interests and all that. And so I ended up meeting with them. The rest is kind of history. So no, we didn't buy back the company from those investors. The two main investors are great investors. They've had lots of exits. Accomplice is one, and the other is Founder Collective. And so they're both extremely patient seed stage investors. They were patient because they've been so successful as investors. And so they're on our board, and they're, been very supportive all along. From their perspective, they had written off the investment right before I had joined. And so from their perspective, they're happy. We haven't taken any additional funding since I joined. We've been operating cash flow break even for several years now. So we're at this point, just, we got a nice business going on. It's not, I don't believe it's like going to be a massive business overnight. And so we've been taking the last year or so, innovating, creating some additional products that we're right about to launch now.
Awesome.
So yeah, we're having fun.
Well, if you're open to it, feel free to weave those into our conversation as we kind of go through things today. So,
sure.
All depends on the timing, right? So,
no secrets.
So walk us through. Yeah. So Peter, walk us through Peter the IV. So your son and your dad don't get mad. Walk us through exactly like just how you kind of got to this point, because everybody looks at HubSpot now, and you were there at the 100th customer party when you first started, right? So it's really interesting to hear your journey there and how it set you up to be a CEO. And it sounds like you did multiple things while you're there as well. So can you just walk us through that and just like some of the key things that you learned along the way?
Sure. We might need more than 20 minutes, but I'll try to
maybe a couple
distill some of the highlights.
Yeah, just the highlights.
Yeah.
We don't need to month 3 I did this, right?
Yeah. So I like to say that I my first startup was me and a few of my buddies, and we were all technical. None of us had run a business really before, and I like to say we made like every mistake possible. This was before SaaS was a thing, and before there weren't many software companies that you could name them on 10 hands, or on a hand, on 10 fingers. And so we made a lot of mistakes. And then I got to join HubSpot really early on, and both Brian and Dharmesh and the early management team there had run a bunch of successful businesses or been part of scaling other successful businesses. And so I learned a lot there. So distilling it down would be really tough. One of the things that I think really stands out, and I don't think anybody really talks about at HubSpot, is the management cadence that we had at HubSpot, which really enabled the company to scale fast. There was a real focus on performance, the way the company operated is, we would say this out loud, like everybody's got a number on their head. And of course, not every engineer had a number on their head, but we tried to manage pretty much everything with a number, especially marketing, sales, and post-sale stuff. And there was also a cadence for reviewing progress on initiatives and reviewing performance of teams, and a process for deciding, do we grow something? Do we keep something status quo? Do we change our approach to something? And that was kind of done throughout the whole organization. It was fairly bottoms up in terms of empowering people to own their piece of the business. And I think that was a really, really valuable thing for me to learn, that we've actually, I feel like we've taken to the next level here at Databox. So I'd say, and I think that's missing in most organizations, that management cadence.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I'm a strong believer of that, because I've seen the difference it makes on the sales side, right? Like, are you a leader that just does forecast meetings, or are you a leader that also does strategy meetings, coaching and development meetings, like, and you don't want to meeting people either, right? But same way that you're
of course
talking
not,
about, right? Like, what's the least amount of meetings possible to get the best performance output? So walk us through that. I mean, it sounds like you have an evolved version of what you did at HubSpot, at Databox, that you said you've taken to the next level. So can you walk us through kind of like your framework in terms of how you approach it and the way you look at it? Because I think that would be massively powerful for other CEOs listening to this call.
Yeah, so I think the first step, and this is really hard, and it I think it's easy to overcomplicate it, but the first step is to build a model for your business, right? I think back in the day, you would build a financial model, or you'd model your P&L out. But I think today, business activities are so much more measurable, and you can actually build a model for most functions in your business and map the productivity of individuals and teams to the performance and the revenue of the company. In a SaaS business, it's really, I wouldn't say easy to model, but it's really possible to model everything, right? So because we get traffic, which we can predict from SEO efforts, or paid or other efforts. We have historical data to show conversion rates and volumes, and then we can flow that through to engagements in chat, calls booked, close rates, onboarding call volume, customer onboarding call volume, to all the way through to upgrades and retention, etc. We talked, referrals as a piece of it. Like, there's a lot of things that you can model in, and so that's the first step. Now, every quarter, we basically throw our actual numbers out and reset the model and reset the goals. I think it's nearly impossible to forecast out too far. But the idea is to at least use as much historical data as you have to set quarterly targets and start to model in the impact of growing specific teams or growing specific marketing channels, etc. And so that's step one. I think step two is to start to have hypotheses around what function or product feature or whatever you should build to have an impact on the business. We use a framework called ICE, which is very common: impact, confidence, and effort. So we're ideally looking for things that have a big impact and we're very confident in that, and it's low effort. Of course, you run out of those things over time, or you have to be more creative to find those things. So there's always a portfolio of projects like that are a little bit of effort, maybe a little bit of impact, really high confidence, and maybe smaller impact, and then a few big swings where it's like, all right, if this thing works, it's a game changer for us. And so it's a matter of having a portfolio of those. And each quarter we sit down and we look at those portfolios. Like, every team is responsible for looking at their projects through that lens, and then writing out a quarterly plan. It's long form written. It talks about what the scope of a project is, or the scope of an improvement area is, what the expected impact is, and some of the steps or the key scope or guardrails that would govern the execution of that project. And so then we aggregate these. We look at all those. We discuss dependencies where one team might need to collaborate with another. And then we finalize that quarterly plan and we stick to it. Like, we don't deviate from it. We might run into a roadblock and need to maybe prioritize another project. We usually have a few extra projects on the list that we know we won't get to, or will be at the bottom of the list if we have extra bandwidth. But that's the process. And then from there, each of those projects might have a goal, or each team might have goals. We have dashboards that we review on a weekly basis, so I can see basically how every part of the company is performing. Everybody reports out their progress on a weekly basis, both for their team's performance or the project execution. And we meet and we review that and discuss any roadblocks, and adapt priorities or resources based on what needs to be done for that week or that month.
That's awesome.
And so that's kind of our process in a nutshell.
Love it, man. And so do you use your own software to track all this and have this in one place?
Yes, of course.
Of course you do.
Yeah. There's other things we use, right? We use Asana for our project planning and execution. We use our reports actually from Databox get sent right into Slack, where we might discuss them further. We meet on Zoom calls to discuss things. So, but yeah, our product allows our whole team to track their performance and then also contribute to a report that rolls up to the whole performance of the whole company.
Okay, Cool, man. So what would you say is like that you've seen in your experience? How long have you been doing this for? This
This
process?
process,
Yeah.
we had a version of it early on. There was when I joined, it was just 13 of us, but we had an early version. We've probably tweaked it every year, like not in a major way, but we'll cut some steps out that feel like extra work, and we'll add some more collaborative aspects into it. So there's bigger projects that we'll do deeper dive reports on. So, but yeah, I'd say we've been doing it for a few years.
Okay.
It took us a while to get to the point where we were decent at it.
So what would you say are like the top three most important metrics that you look at then on a weekly,
So
monthly?
number one for any SaaS business is usually net MRR growth. So it's the new MRR plus the upgrades minus the downgrades minus the cancellations. So net MRR growth, I'd say, is the number one thing that allows us to keep growing. Right, it allows us to keep growing the team, keep expanding what we're doing, grow the launch new products, etc., invest in the business. So that's number one. Number two, I'd say for ours, because we're a freemium business model, is the volume of signups. So we're constantly trying to innovate on the marketing side and also the product side to drive sign up volume, increase signups. The more signups we have, the more new we can bring on. And then because we sell to SMBs and customers, churn will always exist. Our dollar retention would be the third one. So if we start the year with 100 customers, just round numbers, paying us $1 a month, which is obviously not the actual number, and 20 of those leave, then I need the remaining 20 out of the 80 remaining to pay me $2 by the end of the year in order to have 100% dollar retention. So that I would say would be the third focus, which is the reason why we're expanding our product, launching a second product. We'll probably be launching a third one next year. So the idea is there we have a multi-product in order to cross-sell the products into the install base and keep growing the business quickly.
I think you could use this podcast interview as a selling point on why companies should use your system as a operating system for their company. Why they should use your software as an operating system, man.
Yeah, that's our mission is to help companies monitor their data more easily so that they can improve their performance. Right, just looking at it doesn't really do anything. But what I find is that most companies don't have a performance management process, meaning that like they're not setting targets, they're not reporting out results, they're not holding people accountable. They might hold the sales team accountable and maybe the marketing team, but beyond that, it's pretty loose. And so I think it's important to use numbers for that. Also, like there's so many areas to optimize the business. There's so many new things that you can do these days to improve sales and marketing productivity or throughput, and I think that requires a regimented management team that's capable of evaluating opportunities and making bets and being honest about how they worked and didn't work. And so, I think numbers are pretty important when it comes to that, finding those opportunities and evaluating whether they worked or not.
Yeah, no, I think that totally makes sense. So, okay, cool. So what would you say is your single biggest challenge right now that you're running into at this stage of growth?
Oh, good one. The single biggest challenge, I think, is we are operating on a cash flow break even. We kind of made this conscious decision. And so it's a matter of just balancing our investments with our growth. That's not always easy to predict when you have 3,000 customers and you have hundreds of customers, coming, tens of customers going. Like it's erratic, especially in a freemium model, right? There's just no way that we can talk to even every new customer, let alone every existing customer. So trying to figure out, better ways of forecasting the future, and leveraging that to decisions today about investments. Yeah, if we were going to go raise money, I could make more and bigger bets, but we made a decision to try to innovate while we're managing the business cash flow.
Yeah. Well, that's the right model to do it in this environment. So I think you're heading down the right path. Unfortunately,
yeah, no, a lot of SaaS companies have had to pull back. Right, they raised a lot of money, they're investing way ahead of growth, and then I think their growth has slowed or flatlined, or they're expecting it to, and so they've had to do layoffs, cut back. We haven't had to do any layoffs. Don't plan to. Don't think I need to, based on our existing forecasts, and we've slowed down hiring, but haven't turned it off completely. So we're in a good spot. Not
yeah, definitely. Well, like I was saying, unfortunately, we're up on time, and I can talk to you about this for another half hour or so. But where can people find you? Where can they find out more about Databox? And if they want to leverage your tool, like I said, it's really slick. It seems very intuitive and easy to set up. So where can people find out more about you and the company?
Yeah, so just go to databox.com. We didn't mention this, but I have a very large team there that's handling chat inquiries. So if you have questions, they're available to help with all your performance management questions. So you just go to databox.com. I'm active on Twitter and LinkedIn. My Twitter handle is PC4Media. Peter Caputa on LinkedIn. And so I have trouble keeping up with inquiries, as you know. Little inbox is a little overloaded, and I spend the majority of my time operationally running the business. But happy to help if I can, and help point people in the right direction.
Awesome. Well, Peter, I think you gave a masterclass on just breaking it down with performance management, and I think there's some really cool ways we could leverage your tool doing it. So thanks for being on the show, man. It was awesome having you on.
Yeah, appreciate the conversation, Ryan.